Starting a business in the 21st century means designing, creating, and building out a website. You also have to update that website. You also have to produce all your own branding, and that can be tremendously daunting, especially for entrepreneurs who aren't super tech savvy. So this week, I'm talking to an SEO specialist who helps small businesses and entrepreneurs bring their brand visions to life. Kelly Kumler is a mom of three. She's the founder of Kelly Ryan Co., her marketing consultancy business, where she specializes in crafting strategic branding and websites specifically for female founders and small businesses. So let's welcome Kelly to the Rebellion. Hey, Kelly, thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
As soon as I hear that somebody specifically likes working with female founders, right away my spidey senses start tingling and I'm like, oh, this is somebody I want to talk to. So I'm curious, what has led you in that direction? Is that something that sort of happened organically, or was that a mission for you when you set out?
It was definitely, I think, like a lot of entrepreneurs, you start your business and you're like, I'll do everything, I'll take on anyone. And then I just kind of naturally ended up working with a lot of females and a lot of like creative entrepreneurs. And kind of over time, then like narrowed it down to these women that own businesses and they're like serious about running a business. They might not make it something that consumes their whole life. They want to have this well balanced, well rounded life, but their business is a business. It's intended to bring them income and it's not just a side hustle for fun.
Absolutely. And I feel like even your branding for your business can project what kind of clientele you are trying to attract. I also really enjoy working with women and moms specifically. So I have a lot of fun, bright colors and a lot of pink in my branding because those are the kinds of clients that I'm trying to attract. I will work with men. I'm obviously not discriminating, and I'm sure it's the same for you, but it tends to just jive better because I find I don't know about you, but if I'm working with a mom and I tell her my kid is sick and she's home from daycare and she's going to be sitting on my lap while we're having our meeting, she's way more likely to be chill and understanding. She'll probably be like, "Hey, let's reschedule for tomorrow." Whereas a man is a little less understanding, shall we say.
Right. Like, yes, I definitely still work with men from time to time if they feel like a good fit. But yeah, I just feel like I kind of jive better with the women. And so I tend to attract them more naturally too. So it's just kind of all come together that way.
I wonder what you think about there. I've been seeing this sort of conversation on threads. I'm not sure if this is rage bait, but I think it's interesting. This idea of women who are looking for business coaches only want to work with business coaches who are also mothers. And there's a lot of back and forth on this. There's still valuable advice that you can get from business coaches who aren't moms. But I feel like it's a very different lived experience when you're a mom, right? And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that movement.
I totally have seen this on threads. I have like had these same thoughts and been like, wow, what do I think about that? And yes, I think that you're right. Like you can still get so much value from someone that is not a mom. But there is like a different point of view on just like how you operate your life. I mean, I was a teacher before I was a business owner, and there were so many things that I did as a teacher that I was like, I don't understand why they're not trusting me as a teacher. I know best. And then once I became a mom, it was like, I get it now. I was missing a piece that like I just could not understand until I was actually in that position.
Yeah, it's also sort of that concept of we all have the same 24 hours in a day. That drives me nuts. It comes from usually people in the fitness space will say that kind of stuff, but we don't.
Mhm.
Moms just don't have the same 24 hours in a day as, non-moms, so shall we
Mhm.
say, people who are childless. So I just find it's a very interesting discussion. So you started your own business and you're a mom. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Did you have the babies first or did you start the business first?
I had my first son first. So, like I said, I was teaching and I actually have a stepson as well. So he was at the school that I was teaching at. And then we had our first son together in 2021. And I thought I would stay with teaching. And everyone says that being a teacher and a mom is like the perfect gig until I was in it and I was getting called for daycare pickups constantly and, sick kids. And it was still during COVID times where if, someone had COVID, the entire class was shut down for a week. And so that became really overwhelming. And it made me really look at things to be like, this is not what I want for 30 years. I have to figure something else out. So I ended up starting my own business at the end of that school year. And then we found out I was pregnant with the baby like a month later. So it all happened very quickly. But it was kind of meant to be, I think.
For sure. And I always say that, like, if you need something done, ask a mom. Because I really think moms are the most resourceful people. We're good at getting things done. We're good at being organized and we're good at figuring things out because you have no other choice. Like, if you've got a screaming baby, you have to figure it out, right? What's the alternative? So
Yep.
I always think that moms make the best entrepreneurs and business owners. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Okay, so you work with SEO mainly, and this is a concept that if you're in the marketing space or you're in the tech world, is you're obviously familiar with that. So let's actually explain it for folks who maybe don't really know what that means. So there's SEO, SEM is something else that people will hear a lot of. So that would be like search engine or optimization and search engine marketing. What does that actually mean in practice?
Yeah, so SEO is really there's a set of rules. It's there, like Google and any search engine has an algorithm just like Instagram or social media. And it's all based on just trying to serve the best content to answer people's questions. So there are things that we can do within our content on our websites to make sure that it is optimized to actually show up for these search engines. So it's not really about like trying to trick the algorithm. It's more about trying to make sure that your website and the content that lives on your website is well optimized so that people can actually find it for what it is.
Yeah, and that's why you don't want to have like a screenshot of text on your website.
Right.
Google can't pull the text from the screenshot, right? Like that
Yeah.
example of bad SEO.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is something I'm guilty of. I've definitely done that in the past because it's easy, right? And you don't think much of it, but you also need to make sure that you're getting those keywords in there, right? So,
Exactly.
one way that you can achieve this is like a blog section on your website. Like I always hear, who even reads blogs anyway? It doesn't even matter if people are reading those blogs. It's really just to get people to your website. I always recommend websites like Answer the Public so that you can see what people are Googling and searching for related to your topic and then find ways to answer those questions on your website so that people come to your website when they Google it. That's, the very first recommendation I make. But obviously, there's a million other little things that you would do, right? Like you would go probably on a deep dive on somebody's website to optimize it.
Yeah, there's always starting with keyword research. Like we want to know what words people are looking for when they're, in Google and make sure that those are on your website so that people can find them. But then there's so many other things too, like compressing your photos on your website so that your website runs faster. And if you have these really massive photo files, then it's going to take a long time for your page to load, which then harms your SEO because people aren't going to stick around for a page to load for 30 seconds. And so there's also things you can do like go to Google Page Speed Insights, and that will tell you how fast your website is running both on desktop and mobile because usually those numbers are different. And so you can mess around to see, what is causing a slowdown so that you can get your page speed up and then your SEO up too.
And then there's the other element of this, which is SEM, search engine marketing, which is more than just optimization, right? What would you consider SEM as opposed to SEO?
Honestly, SEM is one that like is a whole other beast. And it's I don't even get too deep into that side of things because it really is like a full other career in my mind. So it's one that I'll back away from a little.
Perfect. No, that makes sense. I mean, there's so many. I think a lot of people think, websites, social media, content creation, like it's all lumped together. as like one job. I can't tell you how many job postings I see on like LinkedIn that they want like a social media ninja who has 20 years experience on TikTok. Like just these unreasonable expectations. They want you to build the website, update the website, manage their Shopify store. Like there's a million things that are literally multiple different jobs and can do all of those things. And if they can, they should be paid a lot of money to be able to do that, right? So how do you set those boundaries with your clients who maybe come to you for SEO services and they're like, what do you mean you're not going to create TikToks for me?
Yeah, I feel like I used to more in the beginning get a lot of like, well, can you also do my social media, things like that. And I just been able to at least like collect other service providers that I trust to say, oh, well, I don't do that, but here's someone that does. I do branding and website design like with SEO, so I can usually kind of put all of that together. But then once we get past those services, it's where I just have to hand it off and say, I've got someone else you can inquire with, or I can connect you to. But I do like to stay in my lane.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice because I think sometimes you're so afraid of losing the client that you're willing to do whatever it takes to keep them. And maybe you end up, you agree to do something you're not super good at and you give them subpar service and then they're not happy and they churn and go with somebody else, right? Maybe they leave a negative review. Like there is a very good reason to not do things you don't know how to do.
For sure. And it's like, yes, there are going to be some people that seek out an agency that does everything because they want to stay in one place. And then there's some people that are looking for a specialist in a particular service or category. And so that's where I kind of come in. So I'm not going to be the one that does everything, but I do focus a lot of my education and time and energy into the three main buckets of brand, website design, and SEO.
Yeah. Another thing I think people are often shocked by is how much these digital services cost. Like, and I always say you get what you pay for. Like, sure, you can find somebody probably overseas who's willing to do it for a lot less, but maybe, the copy won't be as good because English isn't their first language, or, maybe the quality of the graphics aren't going to be great because they're just using Canva generated stuff or what have you. So I think there's always sort of a middle ground, right? You need to be comfortable within your budget. But I also think we need to dispel some of these myths that someone who runs your social media or optimizes your website for the search engines, we're not paying them $50 a month. This is, a lot of work. And if it wasn't a lot of work, you'd be doing it yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something that, exactly that, like you get what you pay for. And I try to always tell people when they are inquiring, if they're like, oh, I think it's out of my budget right now, then I'm like, then don't do it right now. Like, I'm not trying to have you go into debt or take out a loan just to get your website done or whatever. But then it's like, trying to make a plan of like, is this something that you need to prioritize? And how do you then make a plan to implement it at some point? Or like start with a DIY route. Everyone has to start somewhere. And then like figure out what your plan is to when that moment comes to actually invest in it professionally.
Yeah, it's all about like scaling your business and growth and having ideally you have a plan that you're working towards, right? I think, some people I've spoken to, have had meetings with business coaches and they're stunned when I say like I have no desire to scale to a multi-million-dollar enterprise. That isn't why I started this business. I started this business so I could spend more time with my child. So that, I wasn't working 50, 60 hours a week and away from home. Like I did IVF. It took years to conceive her. I want to spend time with her. So this is what I've built for myself. And I just need to pay my bills, which I feel like is kind of a taboo thing for a business owner to say. You have to have this infinite growth mindset. And I don't think that that's necessarily true to find success. What do you think?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that that has been a big thing for me. I mean, I've been in business now for 3 years and I kind of started with like, I'm going to do something that makes me so much money, just because I didn't even know there was another option. And then after my first year, where I was like, okay, well, I made this much, which isn't great, but I took a maternity leave. I had my baby home, full time with me until he was 6 months old, and then part time until he was a year and a half. And look how much time I actually worked versus how much I made. And so then now it's like, okay, there's like, what does success look like to me? And it is having that ultimate flexibility, while also bringing in my share of the income, you know?
Yeah. And I want to talk to something that I think a lot of female founders in particular, but women and business people in general have, is that they have difficulty setting their rates because, for example, I produce podcasts and I've had a lot of people come to me and ask what my hourly rate is, but I don't charge hourly because I've been doing this for over 10 years. So it takes me a lot less time to edit a podcast than it would for somebody who's new at this, right? Because I've been doing this for so long. So if I charge you hourly, I'm going to get paid less because I'm efficient, and you shouldn't be penalizing yourself for your experience or your efficiency. So that's why I only work on retainer model. You pay me a monthly rate for a set number of deliverables, and that's that. But I'm curious how you sort of developed your pricing structure and where you're at now versus where you started.
Yeah, so I don't do hourly, similar kind of process there. And I do like a per project basis. So it's like, okay, a website with this many pages, with SEO included is going to be this amount. And I definitely started much lower than what I charge now. But it was, I think I honestly just kind of started looking around, like, what do other people that do this charge? And if I'm brand new to this, I should be charging less. And then just over time, like, okay, they're all saying yes so quickly. I think I can raise that number a little bit. Okay, everyone's still saying yes so quickly. And then getting to a number where it was like, oof, it's hard to get some yeses, finding that balance in between there and kind of repackaging and restructuring things too. It wasn't always like a 5-page website with this and this and this. Finding like what is the best thing that not only like is efficient for my time, but also is what my client is looking for.
For sure. Like you have to have a base pricing, but then things are customizable because everybody has different needs. So, something else that I think people with websites don't consider is how many people are viewing them on mobile devices as opposed to desktop. Because I've seen so many websites that are so beautiful for a desktop computer, but then they look like garbage on a cell phone. And 90% of your traffic is going to be on a mobile device. So, when you're building out a website for somebody, is obviously that's something you take into consideration when you're designing, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, like you said, yes, sometimes I go onto a website on my phone and I'm like, oh, okay, that line of text is like now on cut apart into multiple lines because it doesn't fit on the mobile. So it's like things like that where you have to make sure that you're paying attention to both sides because they need to show up similarly, or like even just the font size on desktop versus mobile has to be different in most cases.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned earlier that before you started your own business, you were a teacher. And I'm so curious about the transferable skills because, I worked in radio, so obviously podcast and social media, there's a very obvious transferable skill set there. But what were the transferable skills for you going from teaching into SEO, which feels so different?
It honestly is so different. I would say that most of the transferable skills really just came from like the organization and like collecting data and understanding how to analyze data, like as my marketing information and like how my business. So it's helped a lot with like the back end of running a business. But like all of the design things I learned through, I actually had started like a side hustle while teaching, doing wedding stationery design. So I learned all of the design pieces that way. And then once I actually started my business, and I heard these horror stories of people that spent all this money getting their website done. And then they were like, my SEO is shot. I'm not getting any traffic anymore. And I was like, oh my gosh, I do not want that to be one of my clients. I don't want someone to come to me and leave and be like, cool, I worked with Kelly and now everything's terrible. So I invested in an SEO coaching course within the first like 6 months of my business and ended up learning through that and just kind of as like I'll add this on. And then I loved it so much and like saw the power in it that I made it a whole service.
Yeah, and there's a lot of principles in SEO that are fully transferable to social media marketing. And this is something that I explain to my clients when I'm working on their socials is that, first of all, don't put a link in your caption because nobody can click on it. So stop doing that. It's 2025. It's enough. But you need to be including keywords in your captions that are not only describing the content, but that are going to reach your target audience. That, you used to be able to do that with hashtags, but there's more focus on the actual caption and the actual words being spoken in the video. So a lot of those principles exist in social media. And it's interesting to me that there's a lot of people who don't see the value in that. I still go to brand pages and I see terrible SEO on their website, terrible SEO for their social media. And I'm curious what your thoughts are. Like, what is your reaction when you go to a page and see something really, really bad? Do you reach out to them and be like, hey, I can help you with this? Or do you just like cringe and walk away?
Usually I just cringe and walk away, but I have had other like friends on the internet send me websites like, you need to go reach out to this person. And I tried before and been just sent a message like, hey, if you ever are interested, I'm here. I can't say I've had anyone bite yet, but it's certainly like, oh my gosh, I come across so many websites or so many like where I can tell there's a lot of things you can't tell by looking at a website for their SEO. But there are tools like Uber Suggest to get that inside peek where I'll look at things and I'm like, oh man, your SEO completely tanked like 6 months ago. What did you do to your website that caused that? And it just internally, I like screaming, please talk to me. But no, I don't always reach out to them and say, hey.
I've done it for like paid ads. Like if I see a really terrible ad, I'll take a screenshot and like you can see on the back end how well that ad is converting. And I'll say like, hey, this ad sucks and I can do better. And I've gotten clients that way, honestly, for stuff like that because they're like, oh yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like boosting posts and whatever. I'm like, cool, let's run a real A/B tested ad campaign and see how that does. But yeah, I think it adds to your confidence to reach out to somebody in a respectful way. Like you don't want to tell somebody literally like, "Oh my god, this sucks. You suck. I'm better." There's an eloquent way to do that. And I wonder if, your background as a teacher helped you with that sort of client interaction. My background was radio, so I did a lot of journalism. So I dealt with a lot of people every day all the time. So dealing with people is something that I consider a strength for me. But obviously as a teacher, you're dealing with people with big emotions because they're little people, depending on if you're, I don't know, were you high school or elementary?
Elementary.
Big emotions. So, sometimes clients can have big emotions and demands, and you're obviously well poised to deal with that, I imagine.
Yeah, I would say that part does transfer as well. And I think especially like that dealing with the parents side of teaching, and that part like because sometimes it's the parents that are harder to deal with than the kids. And so then when you come across business owners, and I will say most of my clients are like amazing and like so easy to work with, but of course we've all had those few experiences. And I do think that having that like I've had to set some boundaries before experience kind of comes into play in business ownership too.
I will also say before we wrap up that your branding is stunning. Like I am very impressed by some aesthetic, brands and color palettes and fonts. It's just chef's kiss. I love it. So tip of the hat to you and what you
Thank you.
yourself. Kelly Kumler can be found on Instagram, by the way, at Kelly Ryan Co. That's Ryan with 2 N's. She is the woman to book if you want bespoke, stunning, personalized website and design for your website. If it's done for you, branding. She offers hybrid packages that include lessons, templates, tools, bi-weekly calls. She has so many awesome options available, and you can find them all on her website at kellyryan.com. Thank you so much for being here today, Kelly. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you like what you heard today, make sure you follow and subscribe to Rebel Mom Boss with Robyn Flynn wherever you get your podcasts. Oh, and make sure to leave a review because that's how other moms will find the podcast too. Until next week.